Okay, so we're here until 9 o'clock, I reckon. Um, and 2 weeks ago, oh, another person. 2 weeks ago, we had the first of these kind of like fun webinar things that I've decided to start running. And I put it to everyone that they could choose something that would be good to look at in the next one. And a good, well, I think 3 or 4 people. Hello, Danette. Hi. Thanks for joining us. 3 or 4 people in the last session agreed that looking at sort of mixing low end would be a really valuable thing to them, and that was maybe something they were struggling to get right. So that's kind of what this session is going to be exclusively focusing on as much as possible. Okay, how to deal with bass stuff on the low end. So before I've got some like I'm going to do a little bit of like sound theory with you guys, okay? Just so we've got like the real roots of this down. And I'm going to look at a couple of songs that well Ben has sent one over that's going to be good to look at. Sunjit, sorry you can't make it tonight. I hope you enjoy us picking your song apart in a short while. There's something through as well, and there's a couple of my own things that I might share just because they're familiar and I don't have to ask anybody else if I can do it. So it's good. So, but before we get into all that, what is it about bass that might be challenging for you guys? Is there anything about it that specifically is difficult? Are you struggling to get a good bass end? Is there like what problems might you be having? Because if there are some things that you're struggling with, we can specifically address them tonight if you mention them. Rourke has very politely raised his hand.
Hello.
Hello.
Um, Hi George. Nice to see you again, mate. Um, uh, I don't have an issue with the low end specifically. It's just getting like the feel of the drums and the bass to work in conjunction with each other.
Mhm.
Trying to still get the meatiness from the kick and just the fatness from the bass. Trying to get those to work together rather than against each other.
Okay, cool, great. I think yeah, that's definitely something we can look at. That's a tricky one. Absolutely. Cool. Thanks for that, Miles. Oh, look at you all. Great. Cool. Yeah, go on it.
So it sounds bizarre, but because of the way I make my music, I have a lot of Dan, why are you laughing? I have a lot of mono compatibility issues and a lot of phase issues with my bass in particular. So it'd be nice if
Okay.
we could figure out a way to fix that issue. I might need to submit
Okay.
something in the next couple of weeks when you next do your masterclass.
Mono compatibility. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of phase issues as well.
And phase issues. All right. All right. I'll put that on the menu. Just quickly before we move on, Miles, what can you tell you what you mean by mono compatibility? What's that? What's that?
So I mean, like, I'll just make a track and I put it into mono and the bass it just doesn't work. It just sounds so I've been trying to fix it, but it just doesn't sound right, you know?
Okay.
So I've been trying to, go back and fix it in my mixes, but it's just not hitting the same as it does. Ah, I have stereo subs.
Stereo subs.
I
Okay.
produce really bizarre, but it works, but it doesn't work, so
Okay.
might need a bit of
Awesome.
help there.
This is a great one to look at, and you know what? I'm gonna put my hands up. There was one track I was mixing recently, which I probably shouldn't play because I haven't got that person's permission. But I was really scratching my head over how to get it right, and I've just figured out one awesome trick that I can share with you, specific to that sort of like getting wide subs and exciting sound. Yeah, Ben.
I'm not sure, but I think mine has to do with masking,
Okay.
which I think comes from the low end. But obviously masking kind of encapsulates mid and high as well. I
So
just,
tell tell us what you mean by masking exactly. Just if anyone's
well,
new to the idea.
what I think it means might be different to what it actually means. But
Give it a go.
so if you've got some, if you've got like a lower end sitting at like 150, it might cancel out some of the sound from 300 frequency. Sorry, I mean,
Yeah, 150 hertz.
yeah,
Might cancel something at 300. Okay, all right.
I don't think it's right based off your reaction.
Ah, damn it. Well, so frequency masking is, yeah, where elements of a mix are hard to pick apart because they're used in the same frequency range.
Yeah.
150
Okay.
and 300 are in a similar kind of area. But actually, if you separate them that much, then that will help to separate them out. Yeah. But if you have like all your mid-range things, your pianos, your guitars, your vocals, if they've all got prominent 500 hertz kind of stuff going on, then they're going to be really a jumble, and hard to pick apart. Whereas if you can shift them to different parts of the mid-range, then you have a lot more clarity. And this is a big deal with bass because the bass area needs its space more than anything, really. Yeah.
That is what I meant.
Awesome.
Thanks,
And
man.
did you mean about the harmonics? Is that why you said pick 300, or as in being double 150, or was that just coincidence?
I have no idea why I picked those numbers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Josh, the harmonic series is going to feature today.
Okay.
Cool. All right, Louis.
Yeah, I sort of something that I've learned to deal with by just brute forcing the thing I want to come out the most come out. But sort of mixing a bass guitar, say an electric guitar, kick drum, and toms. I'd just be curious as to how you go about that, because my way is usually just to kind of smash it all through until I hear the thing I want to hear the most out of it. But I'm trying to learn the smoothest and cleanest way to have the mix without it being muddy.
Okay. Kick, bass, toms, guitars without mud.
Yeah.
I got you, fam. Okay. All right. Anyone else that has something that they'd like to home in on? Oh, this is awesome stuff to be getting on with. Cool. All right. Okay. All right. We'll get to all this stuff when we get to looking at some actual tracks. But yeah, I just thought I'd introduce a couple of concepts really before we get stuck into this. So like starting with what is bass really, and sort of what do we mean by a bass instrument? And I mean, obviously it's going to be the low pitched notes in a track, and the sort of low frequencies in a kick drum is the low end. And what we have when we it's based around a fundamental frequency that defines the note that we're hearing. Okay, and that fundamental frequency can be thought of as just a single sine wave. So this is just leading into a little bit of what Josh was hinting at about harmonics. I am going to just share a tone with you for a second. Okay, where is it? Utility. Okay. It's test oscillator time. Oh yeah. Oh god. Oh no. Oh no. Okay. All right. So I'm going to share my my computer screen and audio. Okay. And so you should have now an annoying whining sound coming into your room. Am I right? No, oh, hang on a second, you won't. Ah. Gosh. So slick, man, so slick. There we go. Okay, right, do you have an annoying sound now?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Sorry about it. Okay, so this is the test oscillator in Logic. I'm just going to switch it off for your sanity's sake. All right. So the low fundamental of a note is just a single frequency, a single sine wave. I'm going to turn this on and I'll show you what this looks like in the EQ. That'll show me like what frequencies we are hearing here. Okay, so that's just a straight up single frequency of a sine wave. I'll move this around. I'll just bring that up a little bit. Okay, so a basic sort of note is based around a fundamental frequency, like this. Now, I'm just curious. I'm just going to look at all of your faces for a second while I do this. I want to know when you start hearing this. I've brought it all the way down to 20 hertz, and I want to know when you actually start hearing this. Whatever you're listening on, it might be headphones, it might be just out of the computer speakers, I don't know. But I'm just curious, just like start waving when you start to hear this. I'm just going to bring it up. Maybe you can hear it already. Okay. Okay, all right. So George got it at 70 hertz. George, so what you listening on over there?
Phone.
Phone. Okay. All right. Cool. So this is as you'd expect. Like this thing is not very good at creating these low frequencies. It's not to create those low frequencies efficiently. You need a big speaker. There's no way around it. A big speaker or headphones that are right next to your ears. They're very difficult to reproduce. Are you able to, all of you, listen to sound actually in the room? Just for a second, take your headphones off and put it out the speakers. Or, yeah, if you could just do that for a second, so you can hear my voice and this tone. I'm just going to do another experiment with you, just to show you like the challenges you have when you're listening to bass. Okay. So you all have this tone kind of out in the room. Is that fairly clear where you are? Okay, all right. Now this is gonna be annoying for a moment. Just come along this evening. It's gonna be fun. I'm gonna subject you to audio torture, and it's gonna be lovely. I'm gonna bring this up now to, and I want you to just move around the room, right? Move around the room and listen to how the sound changes. Just tell me what happens when you move around right now. Just get up. Move around your room. Okay. George is exploring the back end of his bedroom. He's putting a coat on. It's cold. Okay. Come back, George. Stay warm, though. That's good. All right, we'll stop that. You can put your headphones back on now. So what did you notice happening there? Did I notice something uncanny and weird going on when they did that?
Yeah, like a swelling and a change in reverberation and resonance depending on where you are in relation to the sound source.
Okay, yeah. Anyone else noticed that the volume of what you were hearing was sort of like changing and fluctuating as you moved around the room? Did you get this? It can be quite striking. There can be some points in your room where you barely hear this sine wave at all, and other places where you can hear it very loud. Okay, so this is what happens in a room when sound is just like bouncing around. One frequency is going around the room, and there'll be some places where it is adding together in that frequency, and other places where it's really subtracting from each other. Okay, and this is true for all the frequencies in different places in your room. Essentially, it makes it very, very difficult to be sure, particularly with low frequencies, exactly what you're hearing. So the difficulty, well, the first answer to how to get the bass right in your mixing is that you can hear it. That's the simple, annoying fact of it is that it's not easy to always hear what's going on. Headphones are a good solution for this because they tend not to be affected by the room. If you have good studio headphones, sort of DT770s or something like that, then they will tell you what's going on all the way down. So like there was a while when I didn't have speakers that would tell me things low enough, or a room good enough to tell me things low enough, and I would need to check my mixes on headphones to sort of check this stuff out to get those levels right. But yeah, it's not a given that what you're hearing is going to be very accurate. So it's important to make sure that whatever you're listening to and checking your bass on is giving you the most flat and true kind of representation of that as you can. Okay, so that's the sort of simple, straight, like first tip. Honestly, is like whatever you can do to hear those bass frequencies well, do that. Hearing it on different systems is always a good idea. The car stereo trick that people talk about, that's not a bad shout either. Okay. Obviously though, people, like, we're wearing, most of us, are nice headphones right now, and it's not too much of an issue to hear these low frequencies. But that's not how most people listen to music, right? Most people listen on their phones, on their laptops, at the television. At which point, those frequencies just do not translate at all. I've got a little crap speaker here I sort of found in a shared house kitchen, just forgotten at the back of the kitchen here. And I use this to sort of check my mixes sometimes. I measured it recently, and I can't hear anything under about 100 hertz, and that's really normal for a lot of people's systems. So some of the trouble we have is that, like, the low bass notes that we might want to produce are below what a lot of speakers can actually create. I'm going to go back to my sine wave for a second. How? There we go. I think this, oh God. Nope. Let's try that. Yeah, okay. So this here, most people, the way they listen, will not hear this. This is not going to come through on a phone. George is not hearing this sound right now. Some of you are enjoying some lovely low rumbling stuff. It's fun. Okay, so there is a way to deal with this. I just want to sort of introduce this idea. Josh, you were hinting at the harmonics here. So do you have an understanding of this that you can share with us?
Yeah, well, you can have integer multiples of the fundamental, and depending on the character of your waveform generator, they'll be in different ratios. So like a square wave is something like a third and then a ninth and so on. I might have got that wrong, but one of them is like that, and then other ones are different combinations. Yeah.
So if we're using a synthesizer or what have you, then we can use a waveform that has a lot of different harmonics in it. So if I go into, hang on a second, I'm getting ahead of myself. If I go into this tone generator now and go for a square wave, for example, then this will produce a whole bunch of frequencies now. It sounds pretty grating and unpleasant. So, we'll very often use a filter on the synthesizer to filter off the high stuff and give ourselves a sort of mellower, deep sound. Now, we know, actually, from what's happening up here with these higher harmonics, what this note is. So we can fool ourselves into thinking that we are hearing this low thing by including some of this stuff here. So even if I take this filter now and take out that low fundamental frequency, that's gone now. But George, you can hear that note, right? Even though it's coming out of your phone speaker, you can hear this note, even though it's not coming through anyone's headphones at all. You are given the illusion that this exists. Okay. brain can take this information and turn it into that note. So that's just a sort of quick concept on how we can get around this problem of the low bass being hard to reproduce. Okay. So I'm just going to check in with you. Are you with me? Are you like have you followed this so far? Maybe this is kind of old news to you, but I want to make sure that we're all kind of on the same page with this. Okay. Okay. All right. So this is how you can get this deep bass stuff coming through. Yeah, I did another experiment. I was preparing for this. I thought I'd check my laptop and see how that responded at low frequencies, and I took it down to 60 hertz, and it was not producing this at all through its speakers, but it started to produce the third harmonic at 180 hertz. It was really spooky, and so there's something clever going on in my Mac that means it sounds much deeper and fatter than it ought to. Yeah. Okay. Just before I move on, is there anything that sort of like you want to talk about or mention at this specific point in time? Okay, all right. I will just mention quickly one other way of creating these high harmonics, which will help you get that thickness and get a tone which anyone can hear without having to use square waves and filtering and so on. So another way to bring presence to a very low bass note like this that now only George cannot hear could be to add distortion to it. So I'll just demonstrate this very simply. If we take just a basic distortion plug-in now, and we look at the frequencies coming out of this thing, I've added some distortion and it's created some extra harmonics there. So as it chops off the top of that waveform, it brings some thickness and some body to the sound that wasn't there before. So this is a sine wave going into distortion, and this has got a filter on it to get rid of the nasties, but this gives you the thickness. So this is another way of getting sort of fat bass sounds, deep bass sounds, without having to worry too much about whether that fundamental is going to come through. Okay. All right, so there's a couple of simple techniques for just getting bass coming through, low bass coming through. Okay, now. Right, so I'm gonna have a look at a song that Sunjit has sent over now. This is a kind of trap hip hop track. It's a fascinating track. I really love this. It's really quite sort of spooky, sort of sinister sound. And I just think it'd be interesting to sort of look at a couple of songs and just talk about what's going on with the bass, how we can, there are good things happening, there are things we can improve, and just sort of analyze what's happening in the low end here, so we can sort of think about how we can apply it to our own stuff. This is going to be trap hip hop. We're going to get into some other genres real soon as well. Okay, we're going to look at yours, Ben, and maybe one or two that I've been cooking up over here. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to play this track. Have a listen. And yeah, just pay attention particularly to what's happening in the bass. The bass elements are down here. We have actually that's been changed. Oh. So, that's right. Yeah, okay. Have a listen and see what you make of this.
I'm making records every day, in every way. To set the record straight, it's 18 before anything. Anyways, any day's the day to make a better play. Bet and play the game, don't keep the money safe. So many ways to spend it. Hop in the whip and send it. Hop out the crib I'm renting. I'm just looking for adrenaline. Chloe be my bestest, but only when I'm maxing. I will lean, but they be waxing. My whole team be making magic. When I'm CEO, I'm taxing. It's a bike that's chained to the fence. Think about the way I think I'ma change my mind to the pence. On me scraping the bends. Better open my eyes, not looking. I must have got too cozy. Open my eyes in the ditch, I'm sinking. Don't you be tracing down. I'm in the fast lane, fast, know what the lane's about. I had to slow down all the chat, cause I'm not a motor man. Yeah, I spent my weekend westing east. I gotta go to south.
50 floors HK on a dark night. Red lines on my archive. Red lines when I pass by. Red sky painted red eyes. Gotta get yourself tired. Hit me with the red tie. Had to check myself right. Put up outside, young with a floodlight. Hard hats, we on side. Overtime like we in the trap. Going off the track, free on my back. Single with my gang. It's like something from the ocean. New wave. Move like dolphins in emotion. Echo in the open. Yeah, I put her in a box. Money fixed, I was broken. Turn her to a corpse. Chains on my own shit. Paper finna more. TJX right off. Scrapping through the talk. Echo in a dead mist. Take away the floor. Wings darker like a moth. When I came back from the tour. Three red lines behind me. Put up in the sun and hot. And she's spinning on me rolling like a windmill.
Okay. Bit more. Cool. So, Sanjit, Luca, if you're out there, thank you for sharing. Really interesting track. So, what things are you noticing about the bass here? What occurs?
Yes, I'm struggling to recognize some of the notes in there. It almost feels like an extended, distorted kick rather than notes that I can decipher, and that could well be because of my headphones.
Sure. Yeah. The notes are very, very low, and it's quite sort of abstract, really, I suppose, in the way the notes have been chosen. But they are hard to decipher. Is anyone else finding that in what they're hearing? Yeah. And what do you think about the overall level of the bass? Could you make a judgment on whether this is the right amount of bass? You think? Do you think there's not enough? Do you think there's too much?
Maybe for the genre, maybe a little more,
Okay.
but I don't know if I said it, but just more defined.
Okay.
Just
Uh-oh. Sorry, folks. My internet was just dropping out a little bit there. You know what? Can I just make Rourke, would you mind if I made you a co-host of this meeting? Because my internet has been a bit crap recently, so there's a possibility, an outside possibility, that I'm going to drop out and I'll have to rejoin. So Rourke, do you mind if I make you a co-host just for that reason, just in case, just so we don't lose the meeting? Is that okay? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay, I might need to ask some favors of you now, but to let me share stuff. But there we go. Okay. All right. So how then would we go about knowing if we've got enough bass in the track? Ben thinks maybe a bit more. Can anyone think of like how they would go about knowing confidently that we have the right amount of bass here?
I think the transients are at a pretty good level. There just isn't much sustain to the 808s, which sort of makes it feel pretty quiet.
Okay, yeah. A lot of the time, 808s, they are sort of quite thick and sort of sausages as opposed to like the sort of these Christmas trees. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, I'm gonna put it to you. If we're trying to work out like this sort of overall level of the bass, it can be very, very hard. It can be very misleading to get this right. And really, honestly, listening on different systems and comparing to references is the sort of the first kind of rule for this. Towards the end of a mixing process, I'll definitely be looking at sort of commercial recordings that are in the same kind of area, and checking out their how my frequencies sort of balance against those. Now, I'm wary of actually playing other like commercial releases on this because I'm going to pop it on YouTube, and I don't want to get sort of pulled up on any yes, can I share, please? Thank you. On any copyright issues. So I've just recorded a couple of tracks in, and I'm going to show you what they look like in terms of frequencies. So does anyone know Gucci Mane? Is that familiar to anyone? Yeah? Travis Scott? Yeah? Okay, all right. So I've recorded them in. You can't hear them, sorry. but yeah, just so we can look at the frequencies that are going on across the mixer. In fact, this is there we go. This is the yeah, that's the output there. So this is what's happening in the Travis Scott track here. If I no, that's not going to work. Yes, there we go. Okay, all right.
Anyways, any day's the day to make a.
So this failing to be able to hear really clearly what is happening in the low end, we can sometimes use an analyzer like this. This will sort of show you roughly what a good sort of curve can look like. And you'll find that it is this sort of on the Logic EQ, it looks like a sort of downward slope like that. You'll find a similar sort of thing. You see, it's quite a straight line. So like there's wiggles, sure, but it's quite a straight line. The Gucci Mane track is doing a very similar thing. There's a bit of a gap around here, but again, you have this sort of line down like this. Okay. So this is just in case you don't have quite the kit to sort of reproduce this low stuff. It can be useful to sort of check it against something like this. And just to sort of demonstrate something else, this is pink noise, folks. Pink noise is like white noise, but shifted towards the lower end of the frequency spectrum. And where are we? I can't hear it. Yes, there we go. And there it is. Okay, pink noise, very much like white noise, but kind of darker sounding. And you'll see here again, we've got this downward slope. So pink noise is a kind of representation of like all the frequencies at the proportion that we hear them equally. White noise sounds very bright. But pink noise is balanced. And this sort of shape, it can be a really useful guide as to where your overall bass wants to end up. It's not a very pleasant thing to listen to, and this is a little bit nerdy, okay? But there is a little bit of that involved in sort of getting this judgment right. Okay, so that can be very useful. While we're still looking at this track, let's sort of see what the balance is in this track right now.
Send it. How about the crib I'm renting? I'm just looking for adrenaline. Chloe be my bestest, but only when I'm maxing. I will lean, but they be waxing. My whole team be making magic. When I'm CEO, I'm taxing. It's a bike that's chained to the fence. Think about the way I think. I'ma change my mind to the pence.
Down here we have this that low sub bass note. It's about 33 hertz. Most people's speakers are not going to produce that at all. So, and it's disproportionately high. So something needs to be addressed in this a little bit. It's lovely. It's really enjoyable bass. Possibly, Danette, I think you might be right about the transients. Maybe a bit of compression on the bass, which sort of keep it more even, would help it out. But one thing that is helping with this is the fact that these bass 808s, they do have some of that texture. Some of this stuff up here. The one we move on to has even more. Wow, that is low. So it's very common to have some of this sort of texture to the sub. So they don't really sound that way when you hear it in the context of the track. It just gives it more presence and thickness. Yeah. Okay. All right. Shall we look at another track? I've got. I'd like to have a look at Ben's at this point. Any thoughts at this point, at this juncture? Okay, let's move on. Okay, just give me a second while I get this other track up. Ben, tell us about this track that we're going to hear here.
Sure. It was for my assessment, so I had to write it to a brief. Everything's played except the drums, and I will record the drums properly, but I haven't had a chance to get into a studio.
Cool.
I'm not finished with the mixing, which is why I've sent it to you, Nick, just for feedback. But yeah, everything's kind of DI'd, or some of the guitars are recorded from a speaker or an amp. But yeah.
Yep. And are you're in BIM, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
First year's
First year. Yeah, production, a bit of business, but no one cares about business.
Oh, we do. Yeah, that's crucial. And actually, I think in terms of us moving forward as producers and engineers, probably some sessions about that side of things would be really useful in this context, I think.
Useful, but yeah, the lessons are less fun.
Not as exciting. Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to bring up this track here. So, nice little rock tune. I've recreated a couple of the synths here. I've just tidied it up a little bit as well, Ben, just to sort of make it a bit easier to work with for our purposes today.
Cool.
And we have, excuse me, rhythm guitar, electric guitar, lead guitar here, little transition guitar, and then chorus and rhythm and lead guitars here. Bass guitar, just for our purposes today, Ben, I've put it all on one channel just to sort of keep it neat and tidy.
Yeah, no worries.
Drums are programmed, the Logic drum kit, and we have a synth here as well, and a synth bass over here. Okay, which I've recreated the best I could. I think it's pretty close. Okay. So Ben, thank you for sharing this, man. You have offered this to us so we can give you some feedback, some help with how to push this forward. And there's going to be some really useful kind of concepts that we're going to look at here. So thank you very much for sharing, okay? Here we go. Let's have a little listen. wind forward so we can hear the solo at the end as well. Lovely. Thank you, Ben. Great stuff. Okay, so folks, what sorts of things are you noticing about the low end of this mix here? Hey, Rob.
Hello. Great track, dude. Sounds really cool.
Thanks, man.
One thing that could be bearing the bass quite a bit is probably two things. One, everything is in the middle. That can
Middle,
kind of,
what do you mean?
sorry, everything is panned centrally.
Centrally, okay.
That just overall hides the bass. There's not much separation of the guitars. I don't know if you're gonna plan on double tracking the guitars. That could also help get a bit of a fatter sound. But even just the bass tone itself, it sounds quite twangy. Twangy? Don't know if that really means anything. The bass tone itself kind of lacks a little bit of low end. And I saw, but Nick, do you mind clicking the bass guitar channel and on the bass amp? You see there's a low section just above the bass knob. And if you click that, it kind of boosts the bass up and it kind of changes the overall tonality of the amp. So just messing about with the actual different amps and different settings could result in an entirely different sound.
Cool.
Oh, I actually didn't know that about the system. Thanks, man.
Great. Thanks, Rock. Yeah. Yeah, you can customize the sound a lot with the bass amps, and the bass amps are really, they're very handy for bringing some texture and thickness and weight to a bass guitar tone that's been recorded with DI. So yeah, they're very useful, but they've got such different characters to each other. It's really worth exploring. Let's just have a little look at the. I see you, Miles. I'm just going to sort of let's just explore this this setting here for a second, as Rourke suggested. So. Yeah, so there's a much sort of deeper, thumpier kind of sound there. Yeah. Which is helping it come through a bit better. Cool. Yeah. Thank you. Lovely. Thanks. Miles. Yeah.
The only thing I wanted to add was the kick and the bass seem to be clashing a little bit. I think there's a little bit too much going on in that sort of low subby. And I know you said you've got to re-record those drums. So I understand that, but it was just there's a little bit of clashing going on there. But yeah, I thought, the tone was quite nice, and especially because you've now messed with that bass amp, I thought it really kind of brought it out a lot. But it's just that kick, I think, for the most part.
Great. Yeah. Yeah, kicks and basses, they're living in the same kind of frequency range, and we need to make some decisions about those, about where they're going to live in terms of volume and in terms of frequencies. So let's have a look at that in a second. I want to hear from Danette as well.
Yeah. So I really like it. I think what I've spotted is that a lot of the not bass instruments are occupying bass frequencies still. Like the guitar, the tom, some of the snare is just muddying that space when it's not really doing anything with that space.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Danette. Okay, so this is probably my number one piece of advice for getting the low end right, is keep everything else out of the way. Everything else out of the way. It can feel really counterintuitive when you're recording something, maybe using some virtual instruments like Logic sampler instruments or what have you, which sound fantastic, as you record them, and you record your amp and it's got lots of all these lovely low frequencies and high frequencies, and it sounds really rich. And all the Logic instruments, they are made to sound great by themselves. So they have that richness and that depth to them. But in a mix, very rarely do you want to have that low stuff, because it's going to be presenting all this sort of congestion in the low end. So I'd like to look at this first, Danette's suggestion, just to clear out the bass end. I'm not going to play any references over Zoom, but after this, I'd love you to sort of listen to some of your favorite records and actually think how much low end there is in the guitars that you're hearing there. You'll hear they're actually quite thin, except for the bass and the kick. So really, the first thing I'll be thinking of doing is just getting rid of the real low end to give the bass its space. So I'm just going to do a little bit of this to sort of clean it up a little bit. So you see this rhythm guitar here, it's got all this stuff down 80 Hertz and so on. And this sounds nice by itself. Honestly, it's a lovely rich guitar sound. And if that was all that's happening in the track, cool, let's keep it. But we need room for our bass instruments. So really just feeling out where we can get away with cutting things and just keeping it right out of the way. Usually I have a cut on my mid-range instruments around about 200 and keep all of this space for the bass instruments. And literally, folks, I'm going to go through all of these channels and I'm going to do this just to keep things well out of the way. So straight away with that, there's a lot more space for that bass to come through, and I'm hearing it much more clearly than before. Also because it has more bass on it, so that's going to help. So you're going to get this lovely space for the bass and the kick to live in, undisturbed. Okay. So with the bass and the kick themselves, just to simplify this a little bit, I'm just going to make an extra drum track, which is just for the kick, so we can look at that and the rest of the drums separately. I'm just going to sort of just take the kick out of this one. Ah. Yes, I know how to operate this. Yeah. Yeah, lovely. Okay, here I go. Goodbye. Okay, so this is now our kick track. And let's just have a look at our kick and our bass together. And let's actually just have a look at the frequencies that are happening in here. So let's see what's going on. So, is there anything you're noticing about the frequencies of these? Is there anything that's sort of maybe good in what's already happening here, or maybe something more difficult to deal with?
It might be my internet, but the screen's gone black for me. I'm not sure.
Anyone else?
My internet has been shocking recently.
Okay, other people are shaking their heads, so I think
Cool. That's
sorry
fine.
about it.
That's cool. I'll leave and rejoin if that's cool. Just
Oh,
give it a
sure, yeah,
little
yeah,
sec.
no problem. Yeah, yeah.
Sweet.
So there is there are frequency separations down here that we can work with. Usually, honestly, I'll be looking at my bass instrument and my kick, and I'll be thinking, which of these is going to be the subby one, and which of these is going to be sort of the thicker high bass one, and just sort of focusing them in on these different areas. In this case, the kick naturally has some nice low frequency stuff happening, and the bass has more of a kind of like a mid-rangey kind of feel to it, and it sounds quite nice for that. So I'd be looking to sort of emphasize those factors. Yeah, Mars.
Hiya. So, I mean, I make electronic music, so I think a lot about sidechaining, obviously. And I mean, in this genre, sidechaining wouldn't work. Would like the more dynamic EQ work for that sort of thing? I'm trying my hardest to experiment with that in my own workflow, but I'm not sure if that works with this in particular, this genre. I don't know how it would all come together.
Okay. So sidechaining will work in this genre is the thing. You can still use it here. Sidechain compression is one of the most powerful tools for sort of getting a really powerful kick drum alongside a bass sound, because it sort of keeps them out of the way of each other. Very simply, when the kick comes in, it turns down the bass, so there's room for the kick to live in. And it's associated with electronic music, but you can use it any way you like. It will work in something like this as well. So in a second, we'll try that. We'll try that with this track here. Just with EQ, I'm just going to sort of focus these two into different areas of the bass frequencies right now. So if I just, I'm just going to loop around a bit of this. Oh, need to share. Okay. So just listen to the kick and the bass. I'm going to let that kick drum live in the low sub bass a little bit, and I'm going to take away some of the lowest frequencies of the bass guitar and focus it on the higher bass. To give it more chance to live separate to the kick. And maybe even take out some of those frequencies from the kick. So you can end up with a strong sense of separation there, even just by sort of like moving them into those different areas. While I'm here and we're talking about bass, there is one absolutely beautiful technique that you can use to enhance, say you've recorded a kick drum that doesn't have as much sort of subby loveliness as you'd like it to have. One of my very favorite tricks is to use actually a high pass filter, but with some resonance on it. So this will actually create a sort of a tone on the lowest frequencies of the filter. In this case, it absolutely does not need it, but it's something that can be very, very helpful when you just want a little bit more thump out of a slightly anemic sort of kick drum. Creates a sort of sub bass note out of it that wouldn't be there otherwise. And of course, side chaining is a great technique for this. So in this case, if anyone hasn't used side chaining in Logic before, I'll just quickly demonstrate how this works. You would put a compressor on the thing that you want to have reduced in volume, so this would be on the bass guitar, and ignore this. This is something a little bit different, but you'd go into the side chain here and you would select the instrument that you want it to be shaped around, and now this compressor is going to act on the bass guitar. And that will just create a bit more space for it, so you can turn up the bass guitar a bit more now, without it fighting with the kick drum. That's maybe a little extreme, but it is helping it all to cut through. Hey, Josh.
Oh, hi. I was just one thing I noticed when we were listening to the sort of kick in isolation was there's quite a lot of wide stuff in there. I don't know if it's from the reverb or something. The sort of the punch is straight down the middle, but it's maybe slightly being washed out by whatever's in the sort of the wide stereo field.
Right. Yes. So this is pretty much straight up the Logic's own drum kit sort of first kick you come to kind of thing. But you're right, there is some width to it. So I'm gonna take that point. I'm gonna move it actually over to the synth bass over here, which is a very wide sound over here. Notice the synth bass here. In fact, sorry, Josh, I'm going to share my screen for one thing. Josh, I'm going to go straight back to the kick drum as you've commented on that specifically. So, yeah, there is a lot of width to it. If I take this kick, we have the imaging section of the Logic plugins. We can go to the direction mixer. With this is basically sort of bringing the left and right channels out from extreme left and right in towards the center, so we can create some narrowness to the sound. Yeah, that does sound a lot more solid now, doesn't it? When now you take away some of the width. So we bring that into the mix again. It does feel a lot more solid. Yeah. Yeah. Is that an improvement for you, Josh?
Sorry, I'm scrambling for the mute button. Yeah, I think so. I think maybe it gives it space to even maybe now increase the volume of it slightly. It just, yeah, I think before it was sort of that the width was maybe distracting my ears slightly from the transient of it.
Okay.
So yes, in short.
Yeah. No, it definitely feels a lot firmer. Rourke, I see your hand, your yellow hand. Just while we're focusing in on the kick drum, it's just one other thing I just want to point out. Notice with this kick drum, it's a bass drum. The bass frequencies are important. Of course they are, but and I've got some lovely speakers here, and I can hear these lovely low frequencies. You're mostly listening on headphones, you can hear it well. But George is listening on his phone, and he won't be experiencing that deep low sound from the kick drum, but George can still hear it. So just something that's often overlooked is the higher frequencies are really important in kick drums. You'll find that rock kick drums, they'll have some presence in this sort of 2 to 3K area, and if you take out that high stuff, it sounds quite fun, but George won't be able to hear that now. Barely. No. And I want George to be able to hear it. And you put it in with a mix and you can't hear that kick drum at all, or probably a lot of you, even with your headphones, can't really hear it clearly. So just to dispel a myth that kick drums are all about low frequency, having some high stuff is what's going to help it cut through in the mix. Indeed, actually, with even electronic kick drums, just going to bring up where are we? Yeah, drum synth. With electronic kick drums, just while we're here, the way that generally the way that they are designed is by, there we go. You hear that kind of the attack at the start of the sound is caused by like a sine wave just really quickly going down in pitch. If I take this, which is it this one? There we go. There. So you can hear, if I slow that down, the pitch of that is going down. So like a normal kick drum uses that very, very quickly to create that high frequency at the start and that attack. And that sort of means that because you've got all those frequencies from the high to the low, it's going to punch on every system, no matter whether you got the low bass or not. It's going to have some nice thump to it. So that was a little aside. Okay, Rourke, you had your little yellow hand up. Yeah.
So I was just curious. I hear myself, that's weird. Sorry.
Oh,
When I
sorry.
recorded drums for that track that I sent you, a lot of the beefiness actually came from the room mics for the
Right.
kick and the overall drum kit. So is that spreader type of thing, the thickening thing that Logic does, is that their way to try emulate the room sound? Just to try and make the drums sound heavier?
So when you mention the spreader, you're talking about Sherry time. Here we go. Where stereo spread, is it? This one.
The direction mixer when you narrowed it, the kick.
Ah, yeah. Yes. Sorry, what about it, Rog?
Is that just what Logic does to make the drums sound bigger? I guess, if that makes sense.
Okay, so this kick drum is a stereo sound. So it comes out of the drum kit plugin, and effectively you've got the left and right channels. It's sort of panned all the way to the left and the right. This spread control here, when it's set to spread factor 1, it means that it's not changing the spread. It's just as spread as it was before. Exactly, like the left is 100% to the left, the right is 100% to the right. So if you bring that down to 0.5, then it's bringing things in halfway towards the center. So it becomes less wide, but more center focused. If you take it out further than that, then it starts to subtract things in the middle, and you end up with a very wide and exciting sound, but one that doesn't translate very well in a lot of situations. You lose that solidity in the center. So yeah, that's only just narrowing. It's just panning them in towards the center. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. A couple more things to just look at quickly with this track. Miles, you were talking about stereo basses and getting your mono compatibility. You were saying, yeah.
Yep, sorry, I was muted. Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. So, Ben, I've to the best of my ability, I've replicated your synth bass sound here, and it is hard to hear in the mix. If I play it at this point, we have. Doing this. It's roughly the sound, yes, Ben?
Yeah, pretty close. I think I had a couple of phase shifters on mine.
Okay.
But yeah, the core elements are the same.
Yeah. Okay, so, and Miles, you like your basses wide, and I very often do too.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm going to prescribe for you, Miles, is separate it out. Have your wide channel and have your narrow channel. Do it separately. It's lovely to have that wide, exciting sound. I'm going to double this up. Just duplicated the track. So I've to replicate the sound, and also so we could demonstrate this, I had put a chorus effect on that. So I'm going to take that off the synth bass wide, synth bass deep. Okay. So they'll be doing the same sort of thing as each other. And now this one, very simply, I'm going to EQ it. I'll just reset this. No, just turn it off. It's fine, Nick. It's fine. Okay. All right. I'm just going to lose those bass frequencies from the wide one. So you have the wide texture. That's what you're going to enjoy the width from. And then on the deep one, I'm going to do the opposite. So basically, I'm going to create a crossover for these two channels. So the deep one is just doing the low stuff in the middle. And where's my bass gone? No, there we go. Let's loop a bit of that. So you have your central mono bass doing the subs, and your wide stereo bass doing the texture, and then add them together like that. You'll get a lovely firm deep bass sound, but you'll have the exciting width of the sound. Okay, so that will work nicely. There's lots of ways to make that sort of wide, exciting sound. If you don't want to use chorus with it, you can, I don't know, add some reverb and then put some distortion on it or whatever, and just sort of create that texture like that. But that will give you that width without losing the deep, solid foundation of it. Okay. I'd like to. Is that something you've tried before, or Miles? Have you tried sort of separating things out like that?
I do. I use Ableton's my main software, so I have a splitter on the track, but I don't know if it works as effectively as just like actually physically separating the two. You know what I mean? Like I can kind of do it with like plug-in chains and stuff like that. So I might just try just bang just separating it two on like separate channels.
Yeah. I find I get a bit more control over it, and I can start to think of it in different ways. Yeah. And also, then I can put some sidechain on the sub one, and without the sidechain on the texture, so I can just sort of keep it out of the way of those frequencies. There are also like some plugins which will do that splitting for you. Where are we? Yes, this one here, for example. This Plugin Alliance thing has a mono maker, so this will do a sort of automatic crossover around there, and everything up here above 200 will be wide and everything below will be narrow. But still, I think it's going to be better to separate it out, because like this, it's combining those two phasing bass sounds, and they'll be interacting. So your sub bass will, in the middle, will be kind of warbling. Whereas if you have your pure sub sine bass, like, you know, not doing that, then it'll be a really firm and deep and lovely sound that you can swim in and rave to. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. This I'm going to bring up one of my tunes that I've done for fun, just to sort of show another kind of technique that can be useful. One thing I noticed actually with the bass guitar here is there is a lot of noise actually between the notes. This stuff here and here and here. The compressor is bringing that up, and it's making this sort of like low frequency, like fudge in between the notes. So you lose that sort of punchiness of the sound. So, well, yeah. So some gating can help with that, but just to sort of show another way of cooking this, I'm just going to bring up another track. Yeah, fine. Yeah. Anyone fancy a chat while I'm just setting this up? I'll be very quick.
Just
I'm gonna say
a
just-
quick question, Nick. Oh, sorry, who was that? Go ahead, Ben.
No, you're good. Go for it, man.
I just wanted to clarify that last sort of point. Is what was the problem we were trying to solve? Sorry, I think I missed that at the beginning.
So
With the bass.
So Miles was talking about there being a problem with mono compatibility. So he was using these really wide bass sounds that maybe like a synth bass sound that was detuned on each side, or maybe a chorus that was making it really wide, and it sounds awesome. It sounds fantastic, but it can struggle to translate well when you listen to it in mono on a phone, on a television, and frankly in a club. So really, you want all the speakers in the club and the low end to be singing the same pattern, doing the same thing as each other. If they're doing this instead of doing this, then you get much less power out of the music, and you get a much less sort of firm, deep sound to it. So conventionally, we'd bring those low frequencies below 100 hertz right to the center, so you completely get rid of that problem. So you have a really firm low end.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Let's bring this up. So yeah, this is just a little sketch, some electronic music I made a little while ago. I can't remember when exactly, but yeah, it's just showing a little bit of how I've mixed something here in terms of getting the bass out of the way. Very bass heavy piece of music, this. And there we go. Actually, speaking of cheap synths, Ben, or free ones, this is a song I made around the Podolsky synth. So Yuhi, they have a bunch of really cool free synths. Go download them. Like I downloaded them and I was really inspired, and I made this tune. Yeah, so just a couple of things I want to sort of show with this, just how much I keep the low end of things that aren't the bass out of the low end, and also some extreme side chaining, and that working with bass can also be a question of like arrangement ideas as well. So one way to keep the kick and the bass from not interacting is using side chaining, but also if you have them sort of taking it in turns, as you'll see over here, then you can get a very punchy sound. So yeah, I think, and I think it's quite a fun tune, but maybe you like it, I don't know. I'll just bring it down so it's not going to completely tear your head off.
I got my mental
fairly manic sort of song, but just to sort of show the bass over here, we have this. It's got a side chain on it, doing a lot of work. This one here, I've put the bass to wrap around where the kick drum pattern is happening, so they never really happen at the same time. And bass is so much a rhythm instrument. It's really a percussive thing. If you can really think of it as a percussion instrument a lot of the time, to add pace and rhythm and drive. So don't be afraid to sort of use some patterns which create some space and some gaps, because if you have bass all the time, there's no contrast. If you have some spaces between it, then you have some funk and some groove to it coming through. So I'll just show this bit here. Yeah. So just another way of sort of creating some space in your mix for all the bass to exist. And just again with this sub bass, it sounds really deep, but hopefully, George, did you hear the bass line there? He just about heard it on his phone. On his phone he heard it, and it's a deep sub bass, and that's because it has some of this stuff here, some of these sort of low but still present extra harmonics to make sure that it has some thickness to cut through. Yeah, and see, if I take out the kick drum and the bass, actually there is another bass instrument in there, so massive bass instrument in there. Well, this was one other song I'll show you, just to show you just how stark the separation from bass can be, just to show you how that can work. Does anyone else get a sort of a small existential crisis when they're being asked whether to save or not to save? It's like, am I fully present here? Am I going to destroy my entire day's work? Who here has heard Cat Day? Has anyone heard Cat Day? Rourke, you've heard.
Great song.
Thank you. Still really need to release this, but I'm just gonna show this as an example of like separating bass and non-bass things, and just like we're so used to hearing guitars and vocals without that low frequency stuff. Just get rid of it. Just get rid of it. For the most part, unless you're doing something very, very acoustic and very exposed. Those frequencies below 150 hertz, they are for your bass and your kick and nobody else. So there we go. Just very quick. I'm not going to play the whole thing because we're nearly out of time. It's willfully a bit lo-fi, but still, you'll see my point.
Money never did me any good, so I'm gonna be a cat today. Worry never did me any good, so I'm gonna be a cat today. If I can eat or fuck or claw it, I'm not home. And if I'm home, you might best leave me well the fuck alone. Sitting at the window watching all the people carrying their shopping home to feed it to themselves before they die.
Lovely, cheerful song, existential stuff happening. But now, watch what happens to your experience as I take out the kick and the bass.
Sitting at the window watching all the joggers burning all the calories they would have spent on hunting. But there's nothing in the woods, no more, no more. Culture is so meaningless, I'm gonna be a cat today. Don't know how we got into this mess, I'm just gonna be a cat today. If there's an answer to the questions in the sky, myself is swallowed by the dying star that keeps us all alive. Aliens will find us if
There is low stuff down there, but just as minimal as I can get away with to leave space for the kick and the bass to come through. It will be clear. You'll hear this hopefully when you listen to your favorite records now. That in the low end, you'll only have those instruments, the kick and the bass is really all you'll hear down there. Surprise yourself at how thin the guitars are actually on your favorite tunes. Rourke, hello.
Hello. Few very quick things. That's actually how I mixed the bass on my track. I removed the kick at the bass, and there was a very stark contrast between the overall thickness of the song. So I found that really helpful as well. And two, it's a bit of a side question, but when mastering a track, should you master the track on the stereo out of the actual mix, or should you bounce the mix and do a separate master project itself?
You can achieve the result either way.
Okay.
Yes, you can do it. You can do it on your stereo output bus. If it's just one song in isolation, do it on your output bus is fine.
What if it's an EP?
If it's an EP, bounce it out without any mastering on it, put it in a separate session, and then you can see how they flow into each other. You can make sure that they all have a nice kind of level. You're not changing the volume as you go from track to track.
Okay, cool.
And it can help to inform it. Don't drive yourself crazy trying to get them all matched up perfectly though, because that can be, you can ruin a lovely mix by trying to just get it like, oh, they don't sound close enough together. No, just make them sound good and make sure there's not too much of anything. Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. We are at 9 o'clock, and I'm going to not abuse your evenings any further. There are a couple of links I'm just going to quickly put in the chat while I just wrap up here. So this here, I pop it in here, is a YouTube video to an amazing video by Dan Worrell. I think he works for FabFilter, and it's called The Philosophy of Bass. Honestly, quite a bit of the stuff that I've mentioned today is kind of in this. I just thought it'd be good to sort of look at some examples and talk it through as well. But this video is one of the best videos I've ever seen on mixing, to be quite honest. It's superb. I'm not going to take that away from good old Dan Worrell. The last thing I'm going to put in, because I'm a cheeky bugger, is this is a link that you can go to if you want to leave a small donation to show your appreciation, and no pressure at all. But you have an option there to buy me a pint if you so wish. I will be continuing to do these sessions. Would you like to come to another thing like this sometime? Quickly before we finish, can I just get any ideas of anything that you maybe would be good to look at in future sessions like this? Just anything that's on your mind. Does anyone have anything that could be good?
Yes. What someone mentioned earlier, I don't know the exact name of it, but side tracking or something. I don't even know.
Sidechain?
Loosen
Side
up. Yeah,
chain.
that's it. Yeah, cheers.
Okay.
That ties in nicely with my suggestion, which was going to be compression in general, but more kind of detailed.
Okay, all right. Compression. Okay, in detail. Yeah. Cool.
A session on vocal mixing would be very useful.
I was just about to suggest that.
Okay.
Especially the difference between mixing male and female vocals.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because in my experience, you can approach them very differently.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I've been thinking about vocal mixing. Vocal mixing is a tricky one, but so satisfying when you get it right. Lovely. Okay. Well, yeah. Thanks so much for joining. I'm going to do some more of these, probably 2 weeks apart each time. If you think you know other people who might enjoy or benefit, definitely benefit, ideally enjoy a session like this, then please let them know. Get them to drop me an email so I can give them an invite to the next one. If you've got any other ideas for things to run sessions on, please let me know. Yeah, and are you all happy for me to sort of send you updates with like future sessions and stuff like that? Yeah, cool. All right, folks, thanks so much for joining me. It's I feel really honoured that you folks have taken some time out of your day to sort of hang out and listen to me blethering like this. So it's really lovely. Really, you've made my day.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's keep in touch, folks, and let me know if there's any way I can help. And also, if you want to be in touch with each other, let me know, because I can hook you up if you need some extra musicians and so on. Yes, gonna go now. Have a lovely.
Thank you very much, Nick.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.
Thank you, Nick.
Nick. Can I quickly talk to you,
Thank
Nick?
you very much.
Bye.